Hello and welcome to Stop Motion Magazine's podcast, episode 7. In this podcast, we have the amazingly talented Deiter Wagner, who is a CG animator, but is also a stop motion animator and recently did a project with Kevin Smith. The Kevin Smith from The Clerks and Dogma and Jay and Silent Bob. So we sit around and we talk about some crazy stuff, 3D printing, CGI, comparison to stop motion, our likes, our dislikes, and the world that we live in. So stick around and listen to that. And here we also need to kind of give thanks to our sponsors. First off, let's thanks Stop Motion Pro, the makers of Eclipse stop motion software. You can find them at stopmotionpro.com. And also like to thank Ditto Gear, the creators of the Omni Slider and the pan-tilt motion control heads for use with Dragon Frame stop motion software. And you can find them at dittogear.com. And also, finally but not least, the Engineer Guy, which is the supplier of all your mold and casting needs, theengineerguy.com. And with that, let's start the podcast. Welcome, stop motion listeners. This is the Stop Motion Magazine podcast, and I'm here today with Deiter Wagner. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Now,
Glad to be here.
I got to make sure I said your name right?
You did.
Okay,
you
good.
did.
Very good. I'm horrible at that.
Hey, well, you did great.
Okay, good. And so to start with, you're from North Carolina.
Yes.
And you came out here for why? Why did you want to come to this hellhole known as Los Angeles?
It sounds so awesome now. It's just trying to chase the dream, the old guy chasing the dream, you know. It's it is I guess it's still where everything mostly happens. At least in stop motion, it seems like it's here or Leica.
It's an epicenter for sure.
Right, so. Right. It's like, I guess it's one of the few places that is still, there's multiple things going on at once. Yeah. Or not at once, but there's places to go after you've been on something else. I've been in a few CG things where we moved and you get there. I moved to Florida one time.
Oh, wow.
And then the production ended early, and it was like, we're in Florida and there's no other work. What do we do? We go. So at least I feel like in LA, like if you do make it out here, at least there's probably something else you can do, you know, like
yeah, it's one of the places where you can either you can sink or swim, unfortunately. Right. But it's a funny. We were talking about this before we started this podcast about this different studio dynamics and stuff like that.
Right.
You could be loved at one studio and hated at another. It's really a funny situation. But we're all a bunch of kids in a playground with a bunch of toys. It's really all it is,
Right.
And somebody might have a nice shiny toy and you might want to play with their toy and you go, can I play with your toy? And they say, sure, come on over. Or they'll go like, no, sorry, you're not part of our clique.
Right.
But you just hold on tight and eventually you'll have a nice shiny toy and they'll want to play with your toy. So you just go, hey, I got this nice shiny action figure, or whatever. So it's a cool thing. And if you're cool with people, they're cool with you. I mean,
I'm finding that out. And it's like, it's definitely I feel like I don't have anything to lose. So I'm just, not that I'm not nice in any other manner, but I feel like I'm a nice person, so I just kind of like chat with people, and it either works or doesn't work, and I don't really take offense if it doesn't work. I'm like, hey, it's all right. I can go talk to someone else.
Some people get their panties in a bunch.
Right.
They do. I mean, that's just everybody in the world. We all
sure.
We all have our egos that we need to stroke every once in a while, and it's finding that humility and being humble.
Right.
So it's a tough thing.
I mean, there's things to stress over, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You got to pick your battles. You can't. Yeah. Everyone can't hurt your feelings.
Well, your artistic integrity is a big thing to be guarded.
Right.
It's like, well, I'm an artist. Yeah, but you got to pay your bills too.
Yeah.
So.
Funny. Yeah, I'm more of a pay my bills guy than
you are?
Than an artist at this point. Yeah, at this point.
Yeah. I went for years as the pay my bills guy, and I've recently gone to the point where I go, all right, so I can pay my bills, or I can be happy with myself.
Right.
I'd much rather be happy with myself.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I can eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches till the sun doesn't shine. You know what I mean? It's like I'm fine with that. The biggest hurdle though is when you have family. So you got to feed the kids and to make sure the wife's happy. That's
where I'm at too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a 5-year-old daughter, 18-month-old son. So.
Oh wow.
that's got priority.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm getting at, because it no longer is about you, it's about them. So
Right.
that's where that killing the ego thing happens. Is like, all right, I got a production. Let's make sure I keep this one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, that makes total sense. And it's I would say I still have that chasing that dream of like, I want to do what I like for a living.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there's always the battle of like, as long as I'm paying the bills, like, as long as the family's okay, and my wife's okay with like, yeah, keep doing it.
Well,
I mean, there's gonna come a day when she might say, we gotta be done with this. You need to do something else, and I'll be like, okay, I appreciate all the support.
Grow up, Deiter. Grow up.
Yeah, we almost made it, but we didn't quite, and I get it. And let's live. Yeah, sure, it's no problem. So as long as they're behind me, then I'll keep chasing the dream.
Totally. That's great that, there's, just so you know and the rest of the world knows, there's not a lot of parents in stop motion. So, or the animation industry as a general.
Right.
So when people start having kids in the industry, it's usually because they met somebody within that industry, and then
they're both out.
And then they have a baby, and then they go, okay, well, we have a baby, but we can't afford to live here anymore because you don't have a job, but I do. It's those real funky things. And,
Right.
Yeah. So you got to have a spouse that really loves you or cares about you and doesn't want to sacrifice, or is willing to sacrifice their sanity for your healthy ego.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's a fun dynamic, I think, that we have to search for within ourselves to like work in this industry. It's
Yeah, I can see that.
yeah. So you came out from North Carolina, and you started in stop motion doing stuff in your garage.
Yeah, pretty much at home. I've done CG since 2006, mostly working remote. Not getting where I wanted to get, trying multiple times of like, I'm really going to push it, and just always being a little behind the curve, I guess. We moved out here to LA in 2012. I actually lived here in North Hollywood for about 8 or 9 months. And I had a CG job, and that CG job, I worked remote. I had it for like 2 years. It paid well enough to say, let's move from North Carolina to LA. Yeah. We'll be where stuff's happening. And then for some reason, once we got out here, like I think we were probably here 4 or 5 months, and the production was like, hey, it's going to slow down for a little bit. I was like, what does that mean? Should I look for other work? You might want to look for other work. I said, okay. So I started looking for other work here, wasn't finding anything, and like they just dropped me, and so I was like, okay, it was the nice passive aggressive sort of, we're firing you, but we're gonna act like it's all dandy. So once that happened, we lasted a few more months, nothing happened here, and when I went home, I had, like I was telling you earlier, I had to make that decision. I was like, well, what do I want to do? Do I spend money and take another CG online course, get mentored through some CG shots? But that just seemed so burnt out to me, where I was like, I think I'm going to spend that money, and I'll just be like, I don't want to do this. So I came across Animation A-Team, and it was the only place I had a stop motion course, and it was with Chuck Duke. And I was like, I think I'm going to do this. Like, it's expensive, but they send you like an armature and a puppet, and it's one-on-one, and there's not a set curriculum where you're like, you're doing this and now you pass or fail, or it's just sort of like Chuck would just push you to whatever your abilities were, and then try to push that a little more. I fell in love with it. Like from that, I mean, that was February of 2013. I think in December of 2012, I tried to do my own first stop motion thing, where I was like, I should probably just try something before I get into this class. And then from there I was like, okay, I'm 100% addicted. Any free time I have, I'm going to be trying to do something stop motion, and CG will just pay the bills until I can do something else.
The bug bit you.
Yeah, it really did.
Yeah,
it did. And even so many years of CG, and like, I'll do some shots that are like, what from my level, I'm like, wow, it came out really well. It feels a little good. I'll do a stop motion shot and just be like, it looks so cool. Like, I can look at it now, and it's like a piece of it's a stupid little character. Like, all balled up over there in the corner, but then, look on the screen and be like, it was moving and doing things. I'm like, it feels so cool.
It's pretty neat when you look at it, you brought a toy or an object to life.
Right.
You've breathed breath into it, and now it's alive, and it lives for as long as you play that over and over and over again. It's almost like somebody's pulling our strings, like that. That Leica thing where Travis Knight was animating, and he's like talking about the universe. It's like, oh yeah, somebody's pulling your strings, buddy. So.
Well, and I feel like it's the one medium that other people get the same feeling when they see it. In CG, that doesn't happen.
Sure.
I remember my first CG job. I got my first paycheck, and I worked on this little show that never went anywhere. It was called Andy's Airplanes, and I did a shot. They paid me. I showed my mom what it was, and she was like, "That's it?" And it was sort of that, like, I guess people just think like CG, like hit the button and it did it.
They do that all the time. I get that every day almost.
And I have conversations with people that are stop motion people, and it's one thing that sort of irks me and they'll say like, it's not art, it's not whatever. I'm like, but the computer does nothing. You still have to know how to do whatever it is, modeling, rigging,
yes,
animating. If you can't animate, you can't just get the computer and like, look at my beautiful animation. Right. It's going to look like the same crap that you would have put out if it was stop motion or anything else.
Well, that's a big problem with actual stop motion snobbery, because there is stop motion snobbery.
There is.
And I talked to quite a few
people. I've bumped into it.
Yeah, you will. Oh, CG. Ooh, that's gross. You
Right.
just push a button. It happens. I talked to somebody the other day, and they were beating up 3D printing. I go, you realize that somebody spent hours and hours and hours sculpting that in a computer, and then they had to like texture it, or they had to animate the actual facial expressions, and it took maybe not days, maybe it took months,
Right.
To build that. And here you are, you build a puppet and you just push it around and you think that you're top shit.
It's better, right?
It's better. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
It's about the talent and the person's drive and the blood and sweat and tears that they put into the work.
For sure.
And
there is no like hit the button and it's done.
I have a hit the button. I do. I have a hit the button. I'll go and I'll do a CG thing. I'll be like, all right, this is going to be so super fast. And then I'll do it. I'll just build it really fast and I'll animate it. I can build a character like a shitty character within like a day.
Right.
Rig it in a day, and then rig it, animate it, get everything out within 3 days.
Right.
And I like that. But I like that because it's practice, because I don't have the time to actually build a stop motion thing anymore at this stage, because I'm on production.
Right.
So when you're in production, you go home and you're like, man, I can't even open my eyes.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
I need to lay down, You've been staring at a screen for 10 hours and you've been in traffic for 2.
Right.
What do? You just go home, pat the kids on the head, lay down, dog licks your feet,
Right.
pass out, It's one of those weird things. But stop motion is one of those tactile things that if you can sculpt it. I love this Chavant, right? I'm going to actually start using Adam Bean's clay that he actually created. You know this stuff?
Is it the one that Mark's selling or whatever? Is it that one?
I don't think he's selling. No, he's selling Don Carlson's wax. I don't think he's selling Adam Bean's. Adam Bean actually makes it's all homemade in a sense. It's all stuff that you would find in your kitchen, but he makes a wax that is like rock hard, and it changes texture by heating. So you heat it, it melts. Mm-hmm. So you can use it like Chavant. But it doesn't react. It doesn't cause silicones to react. And it smells amazing. And it feels amazing. And it's gray. And it doesn't actually have the same texture as Chavant.
Right.
And basically, the point is, it's a great new medium that we can use. It's not going to be harmful to your skin. It doesn't have sulfur and all this stuff. I just gave Adam a big push there. Adam, you got to come on the podcast. Anyway, met him. He's really nice. Met him at Monsterpalooza. Really nice guy.
Oh,
anyway,
nice.
Point is, sorry guys, I'm long-winded here. I freaking lost my point is, I love sculpting. I love it. It's one of my favorite things. But as I get older, I physically can't do it. I'll get carpal tunnel in my thumb.
Right.
And I have a friend that actually is an animator, Todd Dornfeld. I don't know if you know about Todd, but Todd actually suffered from a massive amount of carpal tunnel in his hands, both hands up the shoulders. Couldn't animate anymore. He was in the middle of a production. And like dead, ready,
just locked up.
And it was his production. He was producing it. He was the animator, the head leader, and he locked up. And he was in almost like a traction type of situation, but just for his arms. And he had to go to therapy. And I had to bring his friend, one of my friends actually, in there too, Tim Smith, and so anyway, the point is, as you get older, your body starts to break down, especially if you're leaning over a table.
Right.
And the height is only so high, or you're leaning under the table, or and I've seen some crazy rigs, and with CGI I can just build it, do everything,
right,
and then 3D print it.
Yeah.
Saves my hands, And so somebody gets pissed. Oh, but you didn't sculpt it. No, I freaking sculpted that thing. I spent a month on that sucker,
right?
And then I may have 3D printed it out, but then I had to mold it and cast it,
right,
to make a puppet, and so. That's a whole other thing.
Oh yeah.
So
it's a means to the same end kind of thing where it's like you still have to have that skill set somewhere in there. It's still popping up and showing up.
Oh yeah.
I'm the same way. The few things I've done lately, did the same thing. I modeled some heads in Maya, printed them out, painted them, and using like clay eyelids and like some.
But what was that chemical that you put on there? Because I inspired you to get that Solidoodle. I remember that.
You did. You
got
did.
the Solidoodle printer.
Got the printer and
PLA or ABS, by the way.
ABS.
Okay, good. Okay.
I forgot what that stuff is called.
It's made by Smooth On. I know
it is
that.
made by Smooth On.
It's like X13 or something.
Yeah, and you really it worked really well. You just wipe it on and you just leave it, and it basically does exactly what an acetone bath would do. Okay. But it's not acetone and it won't harm you.
Oh, that's great. So it's not like a coating on there, is it?
No, apparently what it does is it melts the layer, but then it's like self-leveling kind of thing.
Cool. Yeah.
So instead of, it sort of melts into all your little ridges and then sort of just lets itself level out. And it's worked pretty well. Like, cool. My printer, you can see all the
I got the same printer,
and I'm like, oh man!
Did you get a Mark II or a Mark III?
I got the 4, the Solidoodle 4.
Okay.
When it was on it, they like marked it way down right before they released all the new ones, and I grabbed one, and it's good. I was a little unaware of 3D printing that.
Well, you got a deal on it though.
I got a deal on it, but the fact that it takes you got to calibrate it all the time. And like, if I move it to another side of the room, I'm starting from scratch.
Dude,
and
mine's sitting in the
I
case.
like that.
It stays there. I don't move it. If I need to, I can pull it out. I got the computer set up. It's like,
yeah, I like that because that's smart. I moved mine. I had it really good, and I printed the heads for the next little stop motion short I want to do, and was really excited that I finally had it. Like, it was just printing stuff. And, and I moved it. I've never gotten it back.
Excuse my language.
I've never gotten it back. I just can't get it back.
But did you have the wing nut calibrators on there, or did you have the screwdriver calibrators?
No, the wing nut on there. I can get the bed level, but it's like, I don't know what's happened, but something it.
We'll pull mine out and I'll show you my setup because I've moved mine like 100 times and I've never had a problem.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a trick, and a lot of people out there that don't know about 3D printing. What we're talking about is a Solidoodle printer, which is actually the guy that used to work for MakerBot created his own company when he left MakerBot because MakerBot got really corporate, and he was like, forget this place. And he left. He wanted to make sure that he made something that was cheap and affordable, which is the original intention of MakerBot. MakerBot's original intention was under $1,000 printer. So Solidoodle was like, let's make under $1,000 printers. And that's what they're doing. And they're making, I won't say that they're MakerBot quality in their materials, because MakerBot is kind of like, it's like a Chevy pickup truck, an all metal Chevy pickup truck, versus like a Honda Matrix, all with like, what is that, fiberglass or something.
Right.
It's a plastic. It's a piece of crap car that it looks nice, but can it drive up the road and then go off road?
Right.
Yeah, the MakerBot can't do that. Solidoodle can.
Yeah. And they keep it open source, and it's.
Yeah.
I mean, you get on the some of those forums, and like people have like. Obsessed. Totally built it into a completely other thing, and you're
obsessed.
Just like, yeah, totally obsessed.
I've seen laser cutters actually made out of Solidoodles. It's a little weird. Yeah, all you do is you change the head on it, and it just does the X and the Y, or X and the Z. It doesn't do the Y up and down. Yeah. So, and when we're talking X, Y, and Z, this is CG talk. I'm sorry, guys, but actually you can use this in stop motion. So it depends on what we're talking about. We're talking about basically like a 3-dimensional grid. Is that what we're going?
Yeah, that's how it's. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have Z or Z or not Z, but center, which is the middle of a cube. And then just imagine a cube. And then north would be Y and south would be negative Y in some things. And other things, it's other things. And then left and right would be like positive X and positive or negative X. And then forward and back would be Z, positive Z and negative Z. So anyway, so that's how I just explained some CG stuff to you and three-dimensional stuff. So you can actually use that in stop motion when you're talking to a director. Like, do you want to move it in the Z axis?
Right.
Or, and then they make
you just keep all that reference to your camera, and it makes sense.
It totally makes sense. Yeah. It's actually really good. You bring that up. You can use that for your motion control camera, because your motion control camera, you'll be like, all right, so how many points this way? How many points that way?
All right.
You know what I mean? And you can program out in your head how I want it. Okay, I want it to do this. I want it to do that, using a cube theory. Right. It's really cool. And your programming's a little funky, a little different, because you just say, all right, I want it here, I want it there. But
right.
There's other programs that actually do deal with that binary and the Z and that Y and the X. Yeah. So
I haven't gotten into that in the stop motion. That's kind of my next thing I want to get into, where I'm like, I need moving camera. I need to make it a little more interesting.
What are you going to get? Do you know what you're going to get? Or?
I don't know.
I build one?
Probably, because at this point I can't afford to purchase any of them. But, maybe some of the just do-it-yourself, like, it's not motorized, but you just kind of mark it out, and at least it's just to play around with it and get a feel for it, and then maybe one day someone will pay for a nice little production, and I'll be like, I can buy that now.
The Ditto gear is really good.
Yeah, I've looked at that one a couple times.
Yeah, they sponsor this podcast.
Awesome,
just by being nice.
That's very cool.
The guys, Patrick, who actually runs the Ditto gear, is a really nice guy, easily reachable, and he does his own. Time-lapse photography, really good time-lapse photographer in Poland.
Oh, nice.
But their equipment is great. I fucking love their equipment. Excuse my language again. I love their equipment, and it's affordable. And there's, the other thing too is they're actually making like these heads that you can, not heads, but these motor gear things that you can actually attach to the cheaper motion control sliders or camera sliders.
Right.
So you buy like a $200 camera slider. Chances are they have a motor that you can just attach to it for like another $200 or $300.
So you get in way cheaper.
You get in way cheaper. So I mean, it's not going to you're not going to have a second run that's going to be identical to your first run, unlike there are other gear that you can do that, like servo versus belt or whatever. But hold on one second. Okay. Yeah. So all right, back to the conversation here.
Let's do this.
How do I segue back into this? What were we talking about?
What were we talking about?
I don't think it matters. So if anybody's just catching into what just happened, I probably just did a quick edit, and my neighbor called me, and she had to thank me for being such a nice neighbor. So, right?
Oh yeah,
that's what happened.
That's exactly what happened.
Okay,
taking care of the dog.
Yeah, poor dog. So anyway, yeah. So we're talking CG and we're talking 3D
printing. Yeah.
How do you like the 3D printer? I mean, you got it to work. What's your impression of it so far?
I do, because it's the same. I feel like it's the same. I'm the guy that it's always the same sort of scenario. I always wanted to animate, but I felt like I couldn't draw because I had a lot of friends I grew up with that could draw really well, and I was like, well, I can't draw that well, so I'll never do that. Then CG came out, and I was like, well, I don't have to draw to do that, so I'll do that.
Yeah.
Same with a 3D printer. I'm like, I got into the stop motion thing and was like, I can't really sculpt, but I know how to model stuff in 3D. So now I can print it out and I can use it for stop motion, and so I seem to be always the guy that's like, when the gap gets closed with something new, I'm like, oh, You're how adapting. I couldn't do that? Yeah. Now I can do that because I know a few of those things. Yeah. So it's been good. Every once in a while I have that feeling of like, if I just had like $3,500 to get a real like nice one.
You need more than $3,500. I know what
I was thinking like the Form Labs one. One of those.
You still got the problem though. The Form Labs is expensive. Each print you're going to make is going to be $50 each print.
I know, and that's the thing. I'm like, oh, and then when you get the printer, I can't afford the resin, and it just keeps happening.
It's a gorgeous printer. They have one over at Bixpix, and I know somebody else that has one, and they love it. And the Bixpix one, I can't talk about what they made, but they made something that was so tiny, and it is functional.
Okay.
Blows my mind.
Right.
It's actually functional. It comes apart and it does its duty. I can't even say what that does.
Right,
but,
right.
Non-disclosure agreement, of course.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
That's awesome.
So the Form 1 is it's a gorgeous 3D printer. Problem is, you still have to print the supports, and then you got to cut the supports out.
Still got to clean all
and then you
that.
got to sand the sucker, and that's if you didn't break it when you took it off of the little tray that it sits on, because you got to use a spatula to get the sucker off. It's like it kind of sucks the fun out of it,
Right.
Whereas the new 3D printers that are out there, the extrusion ones, they do dual elements or dual extrusion.
Right.
So you can print in what's called HIP.
Or is that the like water soluble?
No, you're thinking of the alcohol one. I can't remember the name of that, but that one's awesome too. The only problem with that one is if you had it like in a garage, the spool will melt away while you're away at work because of the humidity in the air. That's the problem with that one.
Right.
But the HIP one, you dissolve in like a citrus solvent, Citrusolve, which is actually used to sculpt too. I think Kathy Zung uses it to smooth out puppets.
Okay. That's a little North Carolina shout out right there.
Yeah, there you go. Have you met her at all?
I have not met her other than, some Facebook conversations, but
her and her brother Patrick are some of my favorite people, and I've never met them.
nice.
Yeah, I just love what they do. I think what they do is good, and they're not in Los Angeles.
Right.
Which is really encouraging because I didn't come from here. I came here to find work, and I found work, and I kind of miss the trees. You know what I mean? I'm begging my wife to move to the desert. She's like, "There's no way." You know what I mean? Get me out of the city. Let's go somewhere. But so Citrusolve, and you dissolve the. You don't use this with PLA, by the way. Use this with ABS, and ABS is the petroleum based.
Right.
PLA is the corn based, and but you put it in this liquid for a short period of time, and you shake it and make sure it's agitating the hip, and the hip dissolves, and then you take your model out of there, and you have to let your model dry. It's going to smell like oranges for the rest of its life.
Right.
But I believe you can wash it off with water and then let it dry again. But then you do that whole thing where you smooth it out with that one substance.
Right.
You don't have any supports at this point because you've dissolved the supports.
Right.
And so you're not cutting or sanding or anything. You use that other material that you were talking about from Smooth On, and then you mold and cast it. Or you just use it as a prop. I mean, it's a crazy. I know it sounds like a long process,
right?
But you can do the same thing with that water soluble filament, which is brilliant. Just dip it in water and it's gone. Way better than having support material built up and then you trying to decide, okay, do I take off this little millimeter here or do I leave that? Was that part of the model or?
Oh, right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, the details definitely get lost if your supports are in the. I mean, I feel like that's a whole nother art form to 3D printing too. Is you can let the slicer do the supports for you, but a lot of times it's not probably the best thing. Like if I've seen some people that like they go in and model their own supports in the CG software and then do it that way, and I'm like, but it's a whole other thing to like think about and set up and.
Yeah,
but it's good. I mean. I definitely will be printing more stuff and kind of pushing it. The most recent stop motion I did, the Pabst Blue Ribbon beer can.
I was going to ask you about that.
The arms on that are 3D printed mold. I just printed the actual negative, and cold cast it with some special effects stuff. And there were quite a few people out there when I was asking questions about it said it'll never work. It won't last. The stuff melts. Whatever. Right. Everyone sort of like, some guys like nudge me and like, oh, you're doing the wrong thing.
Don't do it.
Those arms have been sitting painted and sitting there for like 6 months with another puppet that I wanted to use.
Yeah.
And then when it came time, I was like, I'm going to do this beer can thing. I was like, I'm just going to attach these on there. They're animated fine. Looks great. They're still there. Nothing fell apart. Nothing. I was like, I'm glad I didn't listen to anyone else that was giving me advice.
Well, you did something. You totally did something that no one's ever done. You made it a negative piece. So you made the mold halves without making that piece first. Or they call it a chuck or a buck.
Okay.
A buck is something that like you print out or you carve out of wood and then you mold and cast it.
Right.
So you mold it and whatever. You skipped a step.
Right. I was just like, well, if I print it out, I'm still going to have to learn to like cast the mold or make the mold and then cast it again. I was like, I'm just going to try 3D print the actual mold and see if it works. And
now you'll run into some problems with that if you got a bigger mold or, like a head or something that has undercuts. So overhangs. I'm sure.
Well, and there's definitely like, the two pieces don't match
perfectly
like you would with the other thing. But at the same time, I feel like for stop motion stuff, unless you're in an environment where you're doing a Leica quality puppet or an Aardman kind of thing, having little imperfections makes it stop motion, makes it that's the thing that people see and go, oh, that's like a real piece. It's not CG, it gives away that information. So I don't mind it at all. I'm like, it's not perfectly smooth and doesn't look like a perfect plastic toy.
Give it some time though.
Totally
You'll
works.
get to that point where it'll be like, that mold is perfect, right out of the box, and you can just print your own mold. And it's funny. I would say that you're the first person within the stop motion world to do this that I know of.
I'll take credit.
Take that credit for it. You've revolutionized stop motion printing because most of them just want to print a buck and then spit it out.
Right.
I think one of the big problems too with 3D printing, the learning curve for that damn thing is like
it's horrible.
It's horrible.
Well, and it's still. I mean, I read a lot of stuff on it, and it's like, even though the printers are so much better now, there's still that gap of like, if you can't use a CAD program or a CG program like Maya or whatever to mold to sculpt something,
right?
A 3D printer is not going to do any good other than you go out and someone else has already done it and you print it at your house.
That's a big nightmare.
That novelty wears off pretty
really
quick.
Fast.
Yeah, where you're just like, that would be awesome. Oh, it didn't print well.
That guy built that thing out of crap, you know? And what I mean by that is like, and everybody's going to scratch their head. What the hell are you talking about? Well, the molds, or not the molds, if we're talking molds, but when the models are made and they're made in the software, you have these points, right? And then you have edges. And then those edges make up polygons. So the points, edges make up polygons. Usually polygons are 3 and beyond. So a printer takes 3 polygons and it can't take 4. So you have to triangulate the model. When you triangulate a model, or when you build a model and you're doing these extrusions and bendings and all these things and cuttings, a lot of the times the edges don't line up. You have a dual edge touching each other in the model, and you won't know that there's a huge hole there. You know what I mean?
So you print it.
So you print it. And then what the hole means is that when it triangulates inside the slicer software slices up the model, it'll warn you. It'll say, hey, that you have an open edge or open hole in this, and I tried to fix it, But when it retriangulates the model for the slicer and prints it out to code, a lot of times it'll just basically treat the model as 2 different halves, right?
Yeah.
And that it's using those polygons. It's no longer treating the whole model as a solid. It's going, oh, you have these 2 halves, and there's this huge cavity inside of it, type of thing. And it's like, it's fighting itself.
Right. And it just leaves it there.
Yeah. And you're sitting there going, what the hell? Why didn't that print properly? And most of the models that I've seen on like Thingiverse is the place where you download all these free models.
Yeah, they've got a bazillion.
A lot of these models have unbound edges or what is that? Where the edges or double points. So you have 2 points in the same spot, or you have 2
That's right. They're totally overlapped.
Thank you. Yeah. And they'll overlap with each other, and you go, why the hell is this not working?
Yeah.
And I learned the first print I got. I was like, I put it in the machine, and the machine said, nope, sorry. And then it was like, it was this weird. It looked like, I think it was a cat bug from Bravest Warriors.
Okay, yeah.
Do you know Bravest Warriors?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a cat bug from Bravest Warriors for my daughter. She really wanted it really bad. I'm like, all right, first thing we print, and I did a couple test prints with the test models and stuff, but the first real print.
Right.
And I did it, and I put it in the slicer, and the slicer went, and it was like a spider web sticking out of this damn, it was all messed up. And then I tried to print it, and I was like, no, we'll not print. So yeah. It's a funny industry because, I should say industry, but it's a funny principle because they're saying, well, you can do this. You're going to be on the forefront. You're going to have this machine. It's going to be able to print. It's going to be like Star Trek where you can just push a button and you get whatever you want. I call bullshit on this. I totally
for sure.
100%. Because first of all, those guys that are on the Enterprise, they're engineers.
Right.
They went to school to be on that ship.
Right.
So I'm geeking out here.
Yeah.
Forgive me, but I'm way nerding out. But those are trained engineers. Even though the red guys are going to get killed, and even the science officers, or whatever. But everybody there was trained to use that machine.
Right.
It's not necessarily that everybody in the world can understand how to use it.
Right.
They're on a submarine in space.
Well, that's perfect for the 3D printer because that's how it is. It doesn't do anything if it's not basically almost like saying it's programmed. It's like it doesn't. If you program it wrong, it gives you wrong stuff.
It gives you wrong stuff.
And you got to find someone that knows how to program stuff to be printed correctly. You can't really just.
Well, you got to understand CG.
Here's a model. I'm just going to print it, and you're like, it doesn't.
My
really
grandmother
work that way.
does not know what a CG model is. I guarantee you.
Right.
What the hell's a CG model, Johnny? I have no idea. Well, Grandma, remember when TV was first starting, right? Yeah, I was about 3 years old. Okay, yeah. So similar situation for us now, because
in 20 years it'll just be like everybody's got one and they print everything and.
Yeah, and then you're going to have huge corporations. A friend of mine actually believes Amazon is going to be one of the big ones to say, hey, buy a 3D print through us. And my friend Tom always says this. And I'm like, Tom, I believe you're right. But at the same time, I think your timeline's off. He's like, in the next 5 years. I'm like, no.
I agree with that. It's not going to be 5 years.
I give it 10. I give it 10. In 10 years, I think the market will start opening up and you go, okay, well, and then the printers are probably a lot better, cheaper or whatever.
Well, someone made a good analogy and said, could you imagine if everyone now bought like your color printer for your computer,
right?
Just print pictures and stuff.
Yeah.
And you had to do the stuff you have to do with a 3D printer. No one would have one.
Exactly.
Like if every time you went to like print it, you had to like, I had a failed print.
You'd have to build the image.
You're like, the printer didn't print the whole thing. I'm gonna have to try again. It didn't print the whole thing again. I'm gonna have to. No one would have a printer in their house.
Exactly.
It would be totally, gone.
Well, instead of a photograph, it's a scanner. It's a 3D scanner that you have to have, right?
Right.
And so you have to sit there and scan the object.
Yeah.
And then the resolution is really bad. It's really,
all that
really
stuff
bad.
has a long way to go.
Yeah, and I mean the resolution of the scan, not necessarily the print, because you can get a high quality print out of. Well, we're looking at dot matrix is really what we're looking at. We're looking at the very beginning, 1981, printer.
Yeah,
exactly. Thing, it's like you got the little dot edges on the side of the paper. You got to pull those off. Yeah. So we're looking at that. So we're looking at a good 10 years before we actually start seeing something that's a viable product that we use. But for our industry, it's actually going to be. It's a great benefit to have these things now.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, and everyone's using it. I was just at Shadow Machine 2 days ago, and in one of the off rooms they still had the 3D printer from their last production or whatever, and it was like a pretty big machine. But yeah, everybody's kind of got one. They said they don't use it for a lot of stuff, but they use it for anything that's like his example was like if every character has like a badge for something and it's not anime or whatever, we just print like 15 of them, paint them, and we don't have to worry about it.
Super easy. Super easy. Yeah.
Like takes a lot of cuts down a lot of production time instead of like trying to sculpt that, mold it, and then make a bunch of casts of it.
Saves money too.
Right.
I mean, they had a lot of growing pains with that printer. In fact, most of the and I would say
I didn't recognize the name
studios,
of it. Where I was like, I've never heard of that.
There's a whole story behind that, and so the guy that sold the printer to Starburns, I can give you this story. So the guy that sold the printer to Shadow Machine also sold the printer to Leica, and also sold the printers to Starburns.
Okay.
I don't know if Stupid Buddy has a printer. I'm sure they do, but I haven't gone into that studio in a while, so I have no idea. But and I don't think Screen Novelties has one, but most studios don't need them. You know what I mean?
Right.
You got artisans that can just create this thing in the same amount of time at a higher level, in a lot of cases.
Right, for sure.
But sometimes that 3D print is going to be far higher level than any of an artisan can do with their hands. Like a little object that they made at Bixpix, you can't do that physically. It's too small.
Right.
And it's practical and it works. And it's an everyday object. You can sit there and go, oh my God, that thing actually, you can't do that physically. It's just too small. And my point is, you get my point. So the printers, I've seen the studios, Leica had like a top quality printer, and then Shadow Machine wanted a printer, and they purchased the printer from the guy, but they wanted one. They didn't want like a whole bunch of them, and then they got the machine without really knowing, and then they started using it, and they're like, oh, this might not been the best.
Right.
You know, we should have shopped around maybe more or talked to some people.
Right.
And then Starburns, they got theirs, but I don't know if they really shopped around, but they got it from the same dealer.
Okay.
And I talked to the dealer on the phone. Again, I can't remember the guy's name, but a really nice guy, knows his stuff, and he'll be like, buy this or buy this, but this one's the better one.
Right.
This other one's a piece of crap. So I think Starburn's got a really good one too, but the problem is you buy these things and you have a learning curve, man. Leica took years to figure out how to do the 3D printing thing.
Right.
They have I forget her name. Oh, forgive me. I'm sorry. I can't remember your name. You're a lovely, wonderful person. And she's the head of puppets
Okay.
at Leica. And I had a long conversation with her, and she was like, it took forever to figure out how to print that stuff. You know, Coraline took a long time to figure out the colors. And
Right.
And so now Leica is actually at the forefront of 3D printing beyond anybody else for color printing. No one else is color printing the colors that studio is specifically printing. They're printing photorealistic skin tones.
Right.
And it has multiple colors. And there's a secret to it. And I can tell you the secret. I'm allowed to. But it's cross-hatching. So they cross-hatch. They have an artist that does basically what a fine art artist will do with watercolor, pen, and pencil. And they'll sit there and they'll cross-hatch with colors, and they'll fill in the blotching and the
Right.
charcoal or whatever, and they'll just do this in Photoshop on the UV map of the object, and then they'll add that with the STL file. I forget the name of the file, but there's a specific file that has color data in it.
Okay.
And they'll send that to the printer, and because it's layer printed with a powder, it prints those colors in that pattern. And because you can see through the object slightly per layer, and you shine light at it, bouncing through each one of these layers and bouncing back at you, you get that flesh tone color. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
No one's doing that
Right.
now. It's a whole other world. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, very cool. So you hooked up with Kevin Smith. Tell me how you
did.
How did that happen?
That's, well, where to start? It was one of those things that just randomly falls in your lap, I guess. I've always been a Kevin Smith fan. Little throwback. I think the first CG software I ever bought was called Hash's Animation Master, and that was $19.99. And the only reason I saw it was I drove all the way from North Carolina to Chicago Comic-Con just to stand in line and get Kevin Smith to sign something, because I was a super fan back then. Super fan for sure.
Jay or Silent Bob? Which one do you like more?
It was probably Jay that brought me into all the stuff. So I basically that was sort of my. I'd seen a demo of this thing while I was there and was like, I'm gonna get it. It was like $199 or something, and so I started messing with CG at that point, and moved forward to, when was that production? 2012, I think so. We had just moved back from LA. We were had been staying with my parents. We had just moved back into like our own place, and a buddy of mine called and said, "Hey, did you know they're shooting a Kevin Smith movie in your parents' neighborhood?" And I was like, "No, there's no way. Like, what are you talking about?" He's like, "No, I'm serious. Matt's working on it." So a friend of ours, Matt Shively, who I called him up and said, "Matt, what's the deal? Like, you got to get me, like, they're shooting in my parents' neighborhood?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "You got to get me on the set or something." And he said, "Okay." He said, "Well, actually, we just had a office space fall through. Do you know anybody that has an office space in the area?" And I was like, "Hold on, let me call you back." So I called my parents. My parents used to have a business, but they still had the building and nobody was in it. And I said, "What do you think of like just leasing it for a month or two to this production?" And my parents were like, "Well, sure, why not? Like, we're not doing anything with it anyway." So yeah, we ended up leasing them the spot, and so I even though I wasn't like super fan anymore, I was like geeking out, like, "Oh my God, they're here!" They're, Jason Mewes is like hanging out, and so we, I asked him, I was like, if there's anything I can do for the production, like be involved, like I'd love to, let me know. And they called me, and my first thing was I had to drive to Raleigh, which is about 3 hours from Charlotte, to pick Harley Morenstein up at like 11 p.m. in Raleigh and bring him back so he could be on set the next day.
Cool.
And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I don't care. Yeah. So I did that. And then they were like, hey, we need another locations PA. And I was like, well, I don't know what that means, but I'll do it. Sure. Sign me up.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and I've learned that locations PA is like, I don't think there's anything lower in the production than a locations PA.
No. Toilet scrubber.
Exactly. I did that quite a few times.
Yeah.
The toilet's blocked in the bathroom over there. Can you get that? Some of the crew is complaining.
Yeah.
Sure, I got it. But yeah, so I that got me on the production. And so one day, Kevin Smith was really nice. He talked to everyone. He's like, he's definitely one of those people where you're like, he's as nice as he appears in anything that he does. So he, and this is a big PA no-no, which I learned later. Like, I got a lot of people that sort of gave me slack. Like, the PAs don't bother the director or the talent or anything else. But what did I know? I didn't know any of that. I'm not trying to be a PA.
Just by the way, it's BS. You can bother the director and talent. Yeah.
So I, one day Kevin Smith was coming back to set, and I was kind of watching the door at that end. Nobody else was around. I was like, hey, Kevin, how's it going? He's like, hey, what's up? I said, we've met before. And he was like, wait, what? We've met before? I said, yeah. In like 1999, I saw you at Chicago. And I said, and then later I bought tickets to the Dogma premiere in New Jersey, and I drove up for that screening. And he was like, are you kidding me? He's like, I haven't even thought about that forever. He gave me like a big hug, talked to me for a little bit. He was like, this is awesome. And every day from then on, he would kind of, when he came on set, he'd be like, hey, Deiter, how's it going? I'm like, it's good.
That's how it works.
Yeah. Just said stuff like that. So one night later in production, it was one of the late nights filming at this mansion that was like up in the mountain. And everybody, they were changing like a huge set change. And Kevin Smith was the only one in the tent. And I was like standing next to it, and I'd been thinking of like, I'd done this course with Chuck Duke, like I mentioned, and I ended up was like, I need to do a stop motion short. That's what I should do. And so for some reason I was thinking of like, if I could get people from this production to give me one line of dialogue, I could do something funny. And so Kevin Smith's standing over there, and I was like, all right, it's all or nothing. As my whole trip, even here this time, I'm the all or nothing guy at this point where I'm like, just ask. People can, tell you to never talk to them again.
No fear.
Right. No fear. So I asked him, I said, I got this idea. I want to do something, and I would need your like help on it. What do you think? And he was like, yeah, man, what do you want to do? And so I was like, well, here, I sketched out a couple of these little poses, and I want to do a stop motion thing. I'd like to get a line from you and Jason Mewes and Justin Long. And I had other people too. I was like, everyone else, Genesis Rodriguez and Harley Morenstein, Haley Joe Osment, Michael Parks. I wanted a line from everyone. Yeah. And he looked at it and he was like, kind of chuckled. He said, he won't do it. Let's not bother him. Basically went through the line. He was like, but I'll do it. Jay will do it. And I know I can get Justin to do it. And I said, that's fine with me. Like, what am I going to argue with that?
Yeah.
And a few days went by. He's like, bring something to record. I didn't bother him anymore. I was like, well, maybe that was, maybe he was just really high, and he was like, yeah, sure. And he was being cool. So I was like, I'm not going to push it. And I think 3 or 4 days later, he walked by and said, dude, are you going to bring anything to record? I was like, holy crap. He remembers, I better do this. So I went through all that and recorded it. And that sort of set me on the first like stop motion thing where I was like, all right, now I got to make puppets that look like Jay and Kevin and Justin Long in a walrus suit. And at that point, no one knew there was a walrus suit. So I was doing all this stuff, and I wanted to really like social media the crap out of it. And I was going to put it out months before the movie came out. I sent a picture to my only contact with Kevin was like through Jason Mewes. And I sent Jason a picture and was like, hey, here's what the walrus puppet looks like. I just wanted to share it with you guys before I put it anywhere. And I got this email back, and he was like, Kevin said, do not show that to anyone. It's like, it's too much of a spoiler NDA, kind of thing for the movie. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And so I waited till the movie came out. And I mean, that was where the bug probably bit me, where like when I finished all that and people would see it and be like, that looks like Jay and Kevin, you know? And I'd be like, I did it justice, where people knew who it was when they saw it. And I was like, okay. And then it had their actual voices. So that, you know, that helped a whole lot. And then that sent me on the journey to LA. I came out last year for the first time, had that finished. It wasn't out yet, but I was knocking on doors and was like, hey, I made this. I can't show it. I can't leave it as a reel or anything, but I'd like to show it to you. And everyone was receptive. And that's why I'm back this year, knocking on those same doors to those same people and like catching up. And I figure eventually that will lead to something big happening.
Well, you're a smart guy. It's obvious you're a smart guy because you don't take no for an answer. And that's the good thing, especially in this industry where they're telling you not to. It's like, no,
right.
Who cares if you're a freaking PA? You're a human being. You should be able to say hi to whoever you want to.
Right.
Dude, I've worked on numerous productions, and I've broken that rule. And every time I broke that rule, it's been beneficial.
Right.
But I'm also not a stalker. So that's a huge thing. You know what I mean? I'm not some crazy person like, oh, my God, can you sign my iTunes? You know, it's not going to happen.
No, and there's definitely, I mean, there should be some sort of filter there, and like you should
respect.
Right.
It really just comes down to respect.
Exactly.
You have to have respect for the artist.
And that was one of those things where, you know, I probably sat there for a while. He was by himself for a while.
He was probably bored.
Like, this is this is your opportunity. Here's your opportunity. It's. I was just telling my buddy the other day. Last year when I came out here, I had a meeting set up with Stupid Buddies.
Oh my God, I'm getting a FaceTime now. Should I pick it up? Keep going. I don't know who that is, so go ahead.
That's funny. Someone that definitely needs to talk to you, right?
Yeah. Especially if they're Facebook me from like far away. It's really funny. It could be a relative or I don't know. Go ahead.
So I had a meeting to meet Alex Kamer over at Stupid Buddies, but I didn't have anything else going on, and I was here. I'd planned out to be here for like 5 days, I think, and so I was like, well, what else do I do? I said, maybe I just knock on some doors. And I sat over in front of the castle at Starburns. And I knew the area because that's where my wife and I lived when we were here. And I sat out there probably 45 minutes to maybe close to an hour, full-on conversation with myself of like, just go knock on the door. You don't have anything to lose. Man, you're not supposed to knock on the studio's door. Nah, man, just do it. What are they going to say?
Which Stupid Buddy Studios?
This was at Starburns last year.
Oh, yeah.
Because I didn't have anything else set up.
You can't walk into the studios.
You're not supposed to do that.
No.
But here's my trick, and everyone listening, keep it to yourselves. It wasn't really a trick. I had worked with Kevin Smith, you know, so I just used that, and I rang the doorbell, and they said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd like to talk to somebody about animation." And they were like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I'm looking for a job. I'm visiting from North Carolina," and this is still through like the little speaker in the front.
Oh yeah, I know that speaker.
And they said, they were like, "Now, what is it?" And I said, "I just did a short film with Kevin Smith." And they said, and the thing went bzzz, and the door opened. And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I went inside, talked to the guy at the front. He was like super nice, and they said, I think we can get somebody to talk to you." I said, "All right, I appreciate it." I said, "I can't leave anything," because that was their first thing. Was like, "Can you leave whatever you have?"
Of course, they want you to leave something.
And I said, I can't leave it. It's still like
hasn't been released yet.
I can't release it till the movie comes out, that kind of thing. And they said, "All right, I think somebody will come talk to you." And they went in the back. They talked to someone and came back out. And they said, "Dan's going to come out and talk to you, but we're in the middle of production."
Dan Harmon?
No, Dan Driscoll.
Dan Driscoll. Yeah. Dude, he's one of my favorite people in this industry.
He was a super nice guy.
He is one of the sweetest people you'll ever meet, and he's one of the most honest people you ever meet.
Well, and it was pretty awesome because they were like, "It's almost lunchtime. He's going to come out on his lunch break." And I was like, "Oh, that's kind of brutal." Here I am, a nobody, and they're telling him like, "Hey, on your lunch break, go talk to this guy." So
it's not that bad. He probably was bored.
No,
anyway.
well, I sat there for a little while. He came out and he was like, "Hey, how's it going?" We introduced each other, and I could just tell the body language. He was like, "Now, you want to be an animator, or you're trying?" And in my head, I instantly just thought like, "Oh God," he's like, he just thinks I'm some kid that's like, I want to talk about anime. And so I was like, no. So there's been a misunderstanding. I was like, I just did a short with Kevin Smith, and I want to come up here and talk about what you guys are working on and like maybe get my foot in the door. And he was like, did you do those Jay and Kevin puppets? And I said, I did. Like, have you seen them? And he was like, yeah, I've seen them on the internet. Those things are awesome. And we like clicked at that point, more of like peers than a fan. So it worked out. He was super nice. We had a good conversation and stuff. And that sort of gave me the confidence where I was like, all right, I'm just going to start knocking on everybody's door. I'll say you're
breaking rules, my friend. You're breaking rules
right and left. and to everyone listening, it hasn't officially gotten me anywhere yet. So
you're how do I put this? You're riding a fine line there of crazy because there's so many. So you cannot walk up to everybody's studios and knock on their door.
No.
Good luck finding which door you have to go to.
Yeah.
Because there's more than one building.
You would never pull that off there.
You would never pull that off there. And in Shadow Machine is one of those places where they'll just stop you right before you even open the door.
He did. That one I had a little help getting in. I have some friends.
You're covert, man.
I am. I have some friends who are from North Carolina area that are out here that are pretty LA well known kind of thing. And I'd met with them, and they were like, "Just name drop." And so I don't really want to say it here.
No, don't name drop. Yeah,
I don't want to name
keep
drop
that
on
secret there.
But basically, they were like, "Yeah, we've talked to those guys at Shadow Machine recently.
Sure.
Just go down there, knock on the door, and tell them we sent you, and said that we think those guys are cool, and they like talk to you."
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't want to do that. And he was like, "Dude, it's LA. If you don't do that, nothing's gonna happen." So I said, "All right, I'll go down there and do that." So I felt weird. I dropped their studio name and was like, those guys just said it'd be cool if I came down here and talked to you. I'm only in town for a couple of days. I do stop motion.
Yeah.
And the guy was like, I think I can get somebody to come out and talk to you.
Another time.
And I met Aaron Missler, and Aaron's like nicest dude ever.
Sure.
And he came out, greeted me, took me through the whole studio, showed me everything they were doing, sat down and talked to me about making my short film and like what I was looking to do. And it was just it was another like, is this experience really happening? Like, this is kind of awesome. And left. And then I came out, and just 2 days ago, I went and saw Aaron again and had the same great experience of like just catching up. What are you guys doing? Talking about some stop motion things, that kind of stuff. And, I had someone tell me it was maybe I'm getting a little karma back. I don't know if I've been that good of a person, but it seems like this trip's been such a surreal trip of like people being supportive, and I think that's the.
Dude, that's sick. That's sick that you're doing this. I mean, it's amazing because not that many people. And I'm in the industry, and I've been at almost every single studio actually, I've been to every single studio, but I haven't worked at every single studio. Okay. So I've worked at 95% of them. You know what I mean? There are so many rules that you have broken, and in a good way.
And now this really podcast is going to come out. No one's going to talk to me anymore.
No. It's actually funny. So if you were to go to like Bix Pix, where I'm at right now, good luck finding it, one.
Right.
Because it's hidden. You're going to have a good time trying to find it tomorrow, by the way. And then the barbed wire fences. Yeah. And we have dogs. We have a pack of dogs that actually are there to guard the place. Actually, they're not there to guard. They're the owner's dogs. But they guard
the place.
They do guard the place. They let it know if somebody new shows up. And they'll Chicago is the not the pack leader, but he's the big one.
Right.
He'll let you know.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's it's a really that studio is a really friendly environment and actually really cool. All these and for the listeners out there, you can't just walk into a studio because there's actually security. There's somebody sitting at the front desk to stop you from going in. And
I always feel like sharing these stories is like going to backfire on me, and no one will let me in anymore, and then everyone else will be trying to do the same thing, and they're going to name it like the Wagner. You pull the Wagner, let it go.
I think you've officially named it. I'm going to wear a shirt that says Pull a Wagner. The thing is, it's you're doing something you have a reason for being there. If you didn't have a reason for being there, it wouldn't work. You know what I mean?
Right. Well,
if a super fan came up and said, "Hey, I'm here to meet Dan Harmon from Community at Starburns,"
right,
they'd be like, "Fuck you, get out."
Right.
You know what I mean? Excuse my language. Sorry.
We have no time for that.
Yes. But,
well, no, and I felt like I had enough good feedback on my short with the Kevin Smith short, the Tusky Business. You can check it out, tuskybusiness.com. That I had a little bit of confidence that I was like, I'm not ashamed to show this. So if I can get in the door and show it, then it'll be like a little proof of like, all right, how'd this guy get in here? Like, oh wait, he did something that we like, and it's kind of what we do. And so for the one time in my life, I felt like, well, I've got a little bit of something to back it up of like, here's whatever I got to do to get you to look at it. And then once you look at it, I feel like you'll at least be like, okay, that's pretty good.
You think you can do that with CG?
No.
Yeah. It's a totally different beast.
That's a whole different beast. And there's so many talented
dude.
Not that there's not talented people in stop motion, but there's so many talented people at a certain level in CG that it's just overwhelming. And it's not that it's
stop motion's a pond and CG's an ocean. You know?
And it's not that it's an easy. I wouldn't say I don't want to say that it's CG's an easier art form to animate in.
It's not, but
it's much easier to access. And I think that's the thing is like you can get the software. There's a lot of places that'll teach it. There's nowhere.
Do it on a laptop. You can do it on a $100 computer. You know, but you can do it. It'd take you forever to render it out, but you can animate at least, or do basic stuff, Poser or Daz.
And to learn learn stop motion here in the States, I don't know if there's that many places that have it. Like as far as like a college curriculum.
Oh, there's a ton.
Is there?
There's a ton, yeah. College curriculum. So Art Institute has an animation thing, and Art Institute is national.
Right.
But they're a for-profit school. By the way, don't go to the Art Institute. Go to your community college. It's there for a reason.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Save the money and then go get work experience and do something like Animation Mentor or something. You don't need to go to a private college to learn CG or animation for that fact.
Find somebody that does it and get them to teach you. It'll happen a lot quicker.
Way better, yeah. But then you got places like, I'll give you an Nomon. You know Nomon?
Yeah.
Nomon School, that's a great school. Or Full Sail down in Florida.
But do those places I feel like the stop motion is not like a full part of the curriculum.
No,
it's a little taste.
See, I'm talking about CG. I thought I didn't know you were talking about stop motion. Okay, see, that's a whole other beast. So stop motion, there are more schools. So, by the way, the same thing's true and stands. Don't go to the Art Institute to learn animation. Go to like your community college and study film and buy a camera.
Right.
And take art classes. And you're ready to do stop motion. That's really all it is.
Right.
The whole acting of the characters and stuff like that, that's study of human movement or natural movement.
Right.
And there's a ton of books.
Yeah,
and then do a program like Animation Mentor or something like that. You can teach yourself. You can spend under $10,000 and have amazing education and be a pretty damn good animator.
Right.
And you'd be better than somebody that has a master's degree in animation. And I know people that have master's degrees in animation.
Right.
And I'm not going to talk bad about them because they're great people. But I know people that don't have master's degrees in animation, and they just animate circles around everybody.
Right.
Not just those people with masters, but people that are really talented. I mean, there's some people out there, and that's because they approached it from a different aspect, a different angle, and they learned it a different way.
Right.
Not to say that they're not just talented. They're definitely talented. But their outlook on life, their outlook on how they do things, I mean, everything in their world is different.
Different, yeah.
You know, and that's what makes us individuals is our experiences and stuff. And sometimes you have to pay for your experiences, and sometimes you just have to earn them.
Right.
And definitely.
And even when you pay for them, if you don't do the work.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't happen.
Well,
it doesn't happen. You know, if it's like the guy that does 20 hours a week of work versus the guy that's pushing 60 hours a week of trying to learn. The 60-hour guy is going to learn. It's going to get there way quicker every time. You know,
I'm doing martial arts, right? So I'm doing karate and aikido, and I just dabble in Brazilian jiu-jitsu because I'm listening to way too much Joe Rogan and Eddie Bravo. And my big thing is if I miss a day of martial arts, I feel it. and I haven't had it in 2 weeks, and it's killing me right now.
Yeah,
it's killing me. And I'm going back I think this Saturday. I'm actually going to start going back to classes because I had started production. I started production 3 weeks ago, and that first week of production, I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm gonna do all the martial arts I can do and work at the same time. No, I needed to just get into the groove of working.
Right.
And now I'm at the point now I can start doing it. So but I can see the difference between when I learn how to do it every single day versus when I try to do it once or twice a week.
Oh yeah,
it's a big, huge difference.
It is.
I'll give you a great one. And of course, you're going to say this does not relate to stop motion. Actually, this relates to stop motion 100% because how you move is actually and how you animate are they're two reflections of each other. So Justin Rausch, Justin Rausch,
Mm-hmm.
that man does so much physical activities, and he's a great animator. They're one and the same. Because you understand body movement and body mechanics, you're going to understand how to make things animate properly when human devices. And he animated the breakdance sequence in Paranorman.
I know, yeah.
They gave it to him for that reason,
right?
Yeah. And it was great. It was a great little squirm thing on the ground,
So good.
So my point is this: when I go and I'm like, you want to get into like a squatted horse riding position.
Right.
This sounds stupid, of course, but it's the last position you end up when you throw somebody. And pretend I've just thrown you, right?
Right.
If I'm not in that position and I'm off balance, you can take me with you.
Right.
You wouldn't know that unless you did that class.
Right.
Right. But you won't be able to do that if you just did 2 days a week. I wouldn't be able to be in balance if I did 2 days a week because that muscle memory is not going to retain itself over.
Right. You'll know the technique, but
exactly.
you can't do the technique.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and your brain is the same way.
Right.
So your brain, and you're going to say your brain's not a muscle, but your brain is actually fatty tissue. And guess what's inside your muscles? Fat, right? And so your fat, it actually retains a memory. So does your muscles. So by doing it every single day, animating every single day, or doing a little bit, just even a little bit,
right,
you're going to retain that. That's
right. Yeah, you can't just
science.
Yeah, exactly.
So
pure science.
Pure science. Where's Neil deGrasse Tyson when we need him? But yeah, so I mean, I find that one, I'm very envious and jealous of all these animators. I mean, at these studios, there's young kids animating, and it just drives me crazy. Go, wow. What a great life you're living. But then again, they have to deal with bills.
Right.
So
yeah.
And this is where I get into the whole I much rather do it for art than money.
Right.
Because as an animator doing stop motion, I look at it more as art for me than I do as a career. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I look at CG as, that's just a career. But I can also use the CG to make my art.
Right.
It's just a different paintbrush or different screwdriver. Whereas being an animator, animating something in stop motion, it's like a lot of times I just piss things away and I animate as fast as I can because I want to get it over with because I'm doing it just to do it.
Right.
Practice, to get the time, because time is fleeting.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
No, for sure.
But these poor animators, I know somebody's on a 2-week shot right now. I can't say anything more than that, but this one poor animator, I want to tell you if it's a girl or a guy, animating for 2 weeks, 2 full weeks, 5 days a week. Actually, maybe they're doing 7 days a week. Oh, it's brutal.
And one shot.
Yeah. And I knew somebody back on, so I'll give you another flip side of that. I knew somebody on, Frankenhole season 2. So he had to animate the scene, and he was there for 72 hours straight, I think. He slept at the studio.
Ugh.
And the set was made out of cardboard. And guess who had to clean it up afterwards? Like CG clean it up? Me. The cardboard's tilting over, everything's falling apart. The stage is like had to be screwed down because it was warping and it was. And if you want to look at the shot, actually, definitely go look at it. It's the Joan of Arc scene where Jesus comes out and he's got sparklers and Joan of Arc's on the pillar going to be burned. And Jesus is like, "Hey, Joan, how you doing? It's good to see ya." It's Andy Dick, totally, And then he sets her on fire, unfortunately. Well, the whole thing. Imagine your worst case scenario with your buildings falling down while you're animating, the set's being bumped because you have all this crazy shit going on. It's made out of cardboard,
right? And
you're doing a hand-controlled, motion-controlled movement. Hand crank. It was horrible. I mean, the shot was great. The animation was beautiful and brilliant. The animator did a great job. But because of the shortcuts they made to make that shot happen.
Right.
Oh, it took me a week and a half, no, maybe 2 weeks to fix the shot. And so Duke Johnson comes up behind me and he goes, Duke Johnson was the director and producer. Up behind me, he goes, this is after the first week. He's like, are you done with this fucking shot yet? Not kidding. You done with the shot? And I went, oh, come on, dude. I got another week of fixing this, you know? And then every day he came up behind me. You done with the shot yet? You done yet? You done yet? God, I don't want to look at this shot anymore. You done yet? No.
Yeah, that's the other thing. The CG, when I started the CG, I was like, I want to be a feature film animator. But after working on so many little like direct-to-DVD, TV shows, I'm on a new shot like every couple days. Those guys, you know, they work on a 5-second sequence for, sometimes it might take 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks.
Sometimes months, depending on what it is.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I don't know if maybe then if I'd gotten into it, I would do it. Wouldn't be a bit, but now after doing so much other stuff, I'm like, if I end up on a shot on the show I'm on now and it's more than like 3 days, I start to just get like, this thing's got to be done. I just want to look at a different camera angle and a different, you know, like I can't do it for that long.
Yeah. I'm animating my little dinosaurs thing. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw a little clip of that. Yeah.
Little dinosaurs. And they're just Dino Pop Kids is what it's called. And I just kind of threw that together. So I made the first one, the T-Rex, in 1 day. And then I started making 3 characters a day because I had the one to build off of. Right. And then the rigging of those suckers. I'm using Lightwave, by the way. Okay. I've never told you that. I'm not a Maya guy. I hate Maya. Do not hire me to do Maya. Don't even tell me you want me to use Maya. It's never gonna happen. But I do Lightwave, and I love Lightwave. It's simple. It's fast. I don't have any chiclets or things to figure out what that thing means.
Right, right.
Hieroglyphics.
Yeah.
It's got words, and the word tells me exactly what it does. And I go, okay, I want this. So point is, I started animating this thing. And, dude, it was a relief to actually like, I'm just going to make this thing act stupid in front of the camera. And then I'm going to act stupid on the voice. And then just do crazy voices and shit.
Right.
And I'm loving it. I'm having a great time because I mean, you can see over here. The audience can't see this, but I have a set sitting there on its ass. Right? See that table right there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that set sat in here for 2 years and never got animated. Not kidding you. I built the whole thing. It's an insane asylum for the silicone S1 puppet that I built, right? That's the insane asylum padded room. And it was supposed to be, the animation's supposed to be called Quacked, and I couldn't finish it because I've been working.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I take a week and I got 2 episodes of a dino thing in the CG program. And of course I love CGI. But I really love stop motion, and I will go back to building and animating and stuff. I'll actually start doing a Dino Pop thing, just because I want to build those dinosaurs. I want to take the process through the 3D print thing.
Right.
You know, I want to explore the area, and then I also want to do the ball and socket armatures. I think it's perfect. I can just do the T-Rex and put a ball and socket armature in it, kind of thing.
Nice.
And then of course I'll put the tutorials up on Stop Motion Magazine or whatever. But God help me, you know what I mean? Like 2 years of all this building, I spent maybe $500 on materials,
right,
just to build this thing, and I never made anything out of it except for that one puppet that I put up on, on YouTube. So yeah, it sucks. And that's my big beef with stop motion in a lot of aspects is, unless you're completely committed, you have to be completely committed. You have to clean your slate off for like the amount of time that you have allotted.
Right.
Figure out your budget. Be really tight with your budget. And just do it.
You gotta. That's the PBR thing I just did was the same way, where it got to where I was like, I got to do this in like just 2 days. Like I can't. Yeah. It probably took a week or 2 of like planning in my head. Had the guy do the audio, and then I feel like I sort of like pushed it off where I was like, I haven't done stop motion in a while. Like, once I start, I need to go through the shot, I don't want to stop and the lighting's off or the table's bumped or all these things.
Yeah.
And it literally, that probably kept me an extra days of like not starting, because I just kept thinking,
you're worried.
Is there enough time today? Because if I start and then I have to go do something, or, time runs out and I need to go back to the house or anything like that. And I think I messed myself up for like 3 or 4 days. And then finally I told my wife, I was like, I'm going in tomorrow morning really early and I'm not sure when I will be home. And I just went in and started. And then once I got into it, I was like, I'm not going to, I'm not going to stop. I'll wait until I get to the end and however long it takes. And it was fun. I mean, it's such a different thing than the CG thing. It's like, it's such a, I guess you get the instant gratification of like, even when you're playing it back in Dragon Frame, you're like, oh, sweet. Where in CG, you're kind of like, you can play back your stuff. But
you play it over and over and over again. And then you start tweaking it and tweaking it and tweaking it and tweaking it. You can't walk
every
away.
Little thing. And then if you really want to call it finished, you're like, you need to light it. You need to texture it.
Oh, you
better.
light?
And no, I don't. That's the thing. That's you won't see any CG stuff from me as personal work that's lit and rendered. And
oh, really?
I just
don't like it.
I just can't get into it. I guess
you're using the wrong software.
I think I'm just that could be it. I think I'm just not.
No,
I can't get the motivation there.
Dude,
where I'm like,
get it. No.
And the CG, I mean, the stop motion stuff, I like it because I'm like, it's already lit while I'm working on it.
Right. You make it. Well, I mean, this may sound crazy.
There's not much post left to do. Like it's happening in the camera.
Yeah. This may sound crazy, but a lot of times I light as I animate. Not stop motion, but CG. So I go, oh, well, I'm going to need a light here. I'm going to need a light there. I'm actually ADD with CGI. So I'm ADD with stop motion as well. But I prefer stop motion over the CGI. I do. And it's not because I have a magazine and not because I work in that industry. It's because I grew up with that genre. I didn't grow up with CGI.
Right.
I didn't.
Me neither.
There was no CGI. I mean, what was it? Raiders of the Lost Ark? No. The Last Crusade. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And there was that one glass thing. And that was my first exposure to like, oh, that's CG. You know, the glass knight that comes out of the stained glass windows.
That's right. Yeah.
I was like, oh, wow, what is that? That was my first exposure to CGI. And I go, how the hell did they do that? You know, and then when Jurassic Park came out, it was like, oh, damn, you know,
right?
What are they doing? You know, but I was a Gumby kid. I mean, I loved Gumby and I loved Rankin Bass. Those were I
loved all the Rankin Bass stuff.
That shit was amazing.
Who did the SpongeBob's Christmas special?
Screen Novelties.
When they did that, and that came out, we were. I think we were actually driving back from living here. My daughter was 2.5, something like that. Mm-hmm. And I played that for her enough that like now it's like a thing, like even in the
every Christmas.
Not even every Christmas, like randomly throughout the week, she'll be like, Daddy, do you want to watch SpongeBob with me? And I'm just like, yes, let's watch it.
It's a built-in memory. Yeah.
It's such a great like.
Oh, it's brilliant.
It's a perfect throwback to the Rankin Bass stuff.
Did you see the Elf one that they just recently did?
Yeah, and I'm really bummed if those guys are listening. Why has that not been released on DVD yet? That was over a year ago. Where is it?
Because they're milking it till next year.
That's what I thought. I was like, they're going to wait and play it again
and then they'll sell the DVD.
And then they'll get it. But that was great.
A lot of productions aren't releasing any DVDs. They're not even releasing digital copies. Or if they are, they're releasing digital copies. But like Sam's Sandwich, I don't think you can get that. Maybe you can get that on DVD, but there's still in circulation. Sam Sandwich is
I've seen that. I forgot what channel it's on.
Disney Kids.
Disney Kids. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Then there's the Phantom Investigators, still by the same person, Stephen Holman, who's the producer. Phantom Investigators, you'll never find a copy of that. It's never been released. What is it? Frankenhole Season 2, I think, has never been released on DVD, but you can get it through Adult Swim. It's a free watch on Adult Swim. So there's like all this crazy stuff. Like they're holding on to stuff. They're hoarding things. One of my favorites, Did
Frankenhole come out with that Adult Swim deal on Hulu?
Oh, maybe.
I know all of Moral Orel did. All of like Venture Brothers, like a lot of stuff. I'm not positive if Frankenhole's in that mix or not.
Was that Netflix or was that Hulu?
Hulu.
Okay.
Had a big Adult Swim like.
There's
release.
So much content. I mean, you want to see a competition going on in this world. Try to make something, and then try to have the world look at it. It's freaking a nightmare. I mean, it's great, but at the same time, it's horrible. Because like, who's your audience?
Right.
You know what I mean? You're lucky if you can grab an audience. Very lucky. So it's it's kind of interesting. You got an audience, especially with what you were doing, right? You got a good response.
I got a good little response. I mean, maybe I was naive. I thought there would be a bigger response when I did like the Kevin Smith thing, but compared to anything else I had put on YouTube or anything else, I mean, it blew out of the water. I think it's a little over a couple thousand views.
That's great response, though.
But yeah, compared to anything else I've ever put, it has like
it hasn't even been a full year yet, though, right? Or has it been a full year? I remember when you released it.
I don't think it has been a full year. Was it? I think I released it last year.
If you made over 1,000 without any press within a full year, you're doing good.
Okay.
Yeah. And if it's the only video on your YouTube channel, you're doing great.
There's a few things up there, but yeah, I'm trying, and that's what I'm trying to do too. Is like I'm trying to fill in this. I'd like to have something stop motion every couple months, like just even if it's really short, just getting something out there and staying, keeping the memory in there, the muscle memory of doing it.
I'm with you. My goal at one point was just do a stop motion thing every week. I was really like hot on that when I had the studio. I had the Hebagon Animation Studio facility. I still have the animation studio, but it's virtual right now.
Okay.
But I had the facility for the Aquabat Super Show. Okay. I was at the point where I was like, dude, I can release something every week. I have enough space and enough materials. I can really spit some shit out. Excuse my language again. Sorry, man, I'm foul mouthed today. And I did the Itsy Bitsy Spider in 5 days.
Okay.
Built and animated and released in 5 days. So that was crazy. We had, I say we, but it was me. I had that table, which nobody can see apparently, and it was painted green, and I made a cardboard cutout house, stuck it on there, and I made a puppet out of wood, wire, and silicone hands and plastic feet. Done. Itsy Bitsy Spider.
Right.
And then I did the down shooter. I mean, it was fast. It's 5 days because I had all the time in the world to do it. Right. You know what I mean? And then I did that Humpty Dumpty one. That took way longer. It took way longer because more elements. And two, I didn't know what the hell I was thinking. I was just kind of doing it on the fly. I didn't storyboard it out. And then when I did storyboard it out after animating halfway through, I went, oh, God, this is a mess.
Right.
Yeah,
they used to tell us when I was at Animation Mentor, they had this thing. It could be everywhere, but they called it like the Thursday Animator. Mm-hmm. And so they were saying like in feature, like basically when you get a shot, you've got like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You don't touch the computer. You're planning, you're thumbnailing, you're thinking about it, you're listening to the audio. The shot needs to be like solidified in your head.
Yeah.
And then if you jump on it on Thursday, by Friday you've got something really good. Where if you just dive in on Monday,
no planning,
no
storyboard, nothing.
You're just you'll end up where you're starting all over by Thursday. When if you take that time.
Oh yeah.
And I try to do that with all my stop motion stuff because I'm like I don't have necessarily the extra time to do things outside of like paying bills. So I'm like, all right, I got to plan it out. I got to make sure it's going to work.
It's good that you have the time to think about it.
And then jump in and be like, one thing I learned from Chuck was when we first had to do the first shot I did with him, and he was like, use an X sheet. And I was like,
what's an X sheet?
Yeah. I'm like, I haven't used an X sheet. And I got in there and every few lines I was like writing what I was going to do and drawing a picture of the pose that I wanted to do. And it just filled it up. And he was like, let me see what your X sheets look like. He was like, don't do that. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, here, let me show you from one of my shots. And it was a shot from Fantastic Mr. Fox. Mm-hmm. And he showed me the scene. And he was like, here's my like 3 pages of X sheet. And of course it had all the lip sync broken down. But in the other columns where I had been just filling out everything, he had like on the whole page, 48 frames? He had one sketched pose and like a note that was like, nod the head. And then the next page would be the same thing. And he said, I've seen so many people that they plan it all out so tight that as soon as he was like, you don't have total control when you're doing stop motion.
Yeah.
You have an idea of what you want to do, but he was like, when you try to track it that tight, like it's CG, he was like, once you start getting off, if you're off like a frame up at the top, all of a sudden as you get down the bottom, you're not hitting anything you wanted to hit, or you rush to hit what you think you wrote there. Right. And he's like, and it never works. He was like, give yourself as much room as possible and like find one spot and you're like, okay, I need to be there. And he was like, and then just always be 3 to 4 frames ahead of whatever you're posing. Like just keep thinking of like, okay, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going.
That's good. Yeah.
And it totally worked. But those first few, man, it would take me like 2 days of just like every line would be like, this is where the head overlaps. The head will go back the other direction for 3 frames.
Overthought it. Yeah.
Put the whole thing down there and was like, oh.
So I was doing that thing for Fred Figglehorn, Christmas is Creepy, music video. And my friend Andy Signor, he hired me to just do the stop motion sequence. And originally I was going to do we were going to do the whole music video or not the whole music video, but the whole dream sequence in the music video in stop motion. Problem was, they screwed me on budget. They screwed me on time. They were like, oh, well, and it wasn't Andy's fault. It was actually the production company's fault.
Right.
So originally it was like, okay, well, you're going to have 3 months to do it. And it's like, oh, God, I think it was 3 minutes, what they really were clocking. We want 3 minutes. You have 3 months. And I was like, oh, yeah, I can do that.
Right.
And then we'll give you enough money to make the puppets and do the animation. Sure, done, sold. Well, at the end of the day, they gave me $2,000. And they said, okay, we want 3 minutes. And I said, fuck you. Excuse my language, everybody. Sorry. I might bleep this out. But they said, yeah, we want 3 minutes. I said, no. You're getting 30 seconds if you're lucky.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for $2,000. And then they go, oh, yeah, and so you have 2 weeks. I went, no. This is not how this works. Right. You know, this is not a commercial. You're not paying me a ton of money. You're asking for like quality and all this other stuff. So then I had to get a whole bunch of people to help me out for free, which was great. And those people were awesome. Came in, and then it was me in 24 hours to animate. Actually, it was me in 48 hours to animate. Paint is still drying on the trees, and the color's changing because I used latex. You know, I like coated the trees with latex, and I was painting, and they're turning yellow as I'm animating.
Right.
And then my friend Melissa Picard came in, and she animated while I slept on the couch in front of the stage. I'm sitting. We had the stage up against here, you know, and I had the couch right here.
Right.
And she's animating. She's like, "I'll be quiet. It's okay." She animated her whole sequence. And I think she spent 2-3 hours on it, and then she goes, "Hey, it's done. You want to check it out?" I went, "Yeah, sure." It woke me up. Sure, yeah, great. And I went, "Okay, where's the main frames?" And I shouldn't tell this story. Poor Melissa. I love you, Melissa. Don't worry. She because of how I had it set up, not how she had it set up. Because of how I had it set up, you had to click on the camera controller, which was a wire controller. This is before Dragon controlled the cameras, and then hit enter to get Dragon to take the frame. Right. So you had to do it in 2 different devices.
Right.
She was just doing it on one, and she wasn't taking the full frame. And I was like, oh shit. So I went back. So she wasted 3 hours. She was in tears, poor thing.
Oh.
And she did this beautiful animation. I was like, Melissa, it's okay. I'm not mad at you. I'm going to sleep for another 3 hours and just animate.
Right.
And she did. And
Nice.
she nailed it. So, but it's one of those things where, you don't have time I didn't have time to do an X sheet for that stuff, you know?
Right.
And it was just like on the fly. And
you just jump in and go.
Oh, he's going to run from this side to that side. All right, how many frames do I have? Okay, I can do that. You know what I mean? So I'm used to animating that way because I always get those gigs where it's like,
it just has to be done. Yeah.
And I storyboard stuff out, and then I act things out in front of camera. You know.
Okay, yeah.
You know, and sometimes I'll schedule out my X sheet or my planning somehow.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'll be like, I like squiggly lines.
Well, yeah, anything helps.
Yeah, it's just a reference. It's because the free mind. Brothers Quay is a great example. You know the Brothers Quay?
Yeah.
Independent thinkers. I don't even know if they use X sheets, but they probably do in some or whatever. But you look at their animation and go, how the heck did they figure that out?
Right.
You know, that animation's flawless, and at the same time, it's bizarre and crazy.
Yeah.
And I like that aspect, the artsy side of things. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Oh, I just lost my thought.
No, it's cool. It's getting late.
Whoops.
It's getting late. So you want to wrap this up? We can.
Sure.
Yeah,
This has been amazing.
Yeah, it's been great, dude. It's nice to talk shop.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
totally. Too bad you don't live out here, man.
I know. Yeah. Well, that's what I'm working on. We'll see.
Don't rush. You can probably start your own studio in North Carolina.
I have thought of that too.
You're probably better off
doing something like that.
I tell you what, man.
If I have the right connections to get the work and that kind of thing,
I think you could do it. I think you could do it.
It's quite possible.
I'll give you the advice that I give everybody about the stop motion thing. I have known people to like destroy their careers just to get into stop motion. I'm not kidding. Like full on, you're making $120,000 a year. Oh my God, why are you stopping what you're doing?
Right.
You know what I mean? And you're gonna make $18,000 this year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
it's awesome.
It's great, right? By the way, kids, not everybody makes 18,000. Yeah, that's when you first start out. But the point is, this is what I tell them: you can make $120,000, work a 9-to-5 job, Monday through Friday, and then be a weekend animator and be able to afford to do exactly what you want to do. Or you can go be a slave in a studio, think you're living the dream, and just be somebody else's puppet.
Right.
Be the master of the puppet. Don't be the puppet. You know what I mean? Because it's a big difference there. And that's one of the reasons why I really don't mind not animating stop motion at a studio. It's because I could go home and I can animate.
Right.
You know, and I can watch everything that they're doing because I'm in post. And I go, whoa, I know how to fix this.
Right.
No one else does. Here's a good one. If you want to be really good at stop motion, be a good compositor. Because you're going to have to remove all them damn rigs that you're putting in your shots.
Yeah, that's. I had that conversation with Webster for a little bit.
Oh, Webster's good.
I was just like, I was like, yeah, like I was telling you, I want to get into like some moving camera stuff, and then you know, I try to plan my stuff so I don't have to rig too much. And he was like, but you got to rig, and I was like, I know, but then there's the whole post thing and the that kind of thing. And he was like, yeah, it's just. That's what you got to do, you know?
Yeah. Well, you got to be a jack of all trades.
You do.
You got to be a puppet maker, set builder, story writer, animator, director, producer, Foley designer,
compositor,
audio recording, CG artist.
Right.
You got to do it all.
It really is. You do have to do it all if you're gonna pull it off by yourself. There's a lot of things to do.
That's one of the big things that's what I strive for. Actually, it's always teaching myself something new. So I went to audio engineering school, became an audio engineer. I went to film school, became a film director, or I should say music video and commercial director, and then went and interned at the Shadow Machine and became a stop motion dude. But I had been animating all through that time.
Right.
You know, at home with whatever I could possibly do. When I didn't have cameras to take stop motion photographs, I was animating in the computer using DAZ Studio. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That stupid poser software, you know? I shouldn't call it stupid because it's actually a great thing to learn on. But I learned how to pose and I learned how to do keyframing and all that other stuff.
Right.
And then I taught myself how to hand draw, and I got the stuff, you know, the light board.
Right.
You know, pegboard.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have it sitting over here somewhere. But the point is, you know, I taught myself every single thing I possibly could. And I always take to heart like what Eric Clapton said. Because somebody asked him, like, hey, when you stop learning? Or Eric Clapton said, you never stop learning. You're still learning how to play.
I think if you keep that in mind, then you'll always come out okay. Like
totally.
I think it's when you get to that point where you're like, well, I know how to do this. Then all of a sudden you're like, why is everyone passing me by? And like, why do I? And because you feel like, oh, I already know how to do this. I don't have to learn anything else. Yeah. So you just.
Well, that's the thing we started with, ego.
Right.
Yeah. Ego is a huge killer of who you are as a creative individual. I mean, some people feed off of having a big ego, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm big." But you got to look at people that have huge egos, and like, if they're not doing anything anymore, like, why aren't they doing anything more? Because they're hard to work with,
right?
And also, they think they know their stuff. Their shit doesn't stink, and they.
Yeah, once you think that, then you're
done.
You're
toast,
you're
my friend.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally toast. And you got to stay humble, man. You got to stay humble because there's always somebody better than you.
For sure.
Somebody has more knowledge than you.
And you can learn from someone that doesn't know what they're doing. They might.
Oh yeah. Well,
it's stumble across something.
It's a beautiful thing. I embrace the lack of knowledge that I have because at one point I was like, man, I know so much stuff. I don't need to, I don't need to read a book or whatever.
Right.
And then now I'm at the point where it's like, I'll run into a kid that I've never met before, and I'll be like, wow, that kid has more knowledge than I do about this one specific subject. I need to just hang out with him.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's been a couple kids that I was like, work with, and like season 1, this one guy, Jonathan, and I said his name, Jonathan Irons. Love that guy. I'm shouting out to you, Jonathan. He's one of the smartest cats I've ever met in my life when it comes to specific technical things. He'll analyze it, figure it out, and problem solve it, and build it, and build it, and build it until he's mastered the concept of what it is.
Right.
Guy's smart, and he taught me a great deal about humility and being humble and all that other stuff, because at one point I was like, I got this knowledge about this and that, and then I'm working side by side with this guy, and he's throwing excuse my language, but he's throwing shit at me that I had never even heard of, and I was like, dude, I thought I had a better knowledge than everybody
Right.
about this in stop motion or that in stop motion, and here's this guy that just graduated from college, got into the field, and is a smart cat.
Right.
So, yeah, anyway. So, at the end of this production, I always ask everybody, do you have any words of wisdom for anybody out there in the field?
After this interview, it sounds like don't go knock on people's doors, but no.
Go knock on their doors, see what happens. It's fine.
Yeah, just if it's fun, just do it. That's if you're not hurting anybody and you're having fun, whatever it is, whether it's stop motion or 3D printing or anything else, like just enjoy it and
Nice.
And kind of be nice to everyone.
Exactly.
People will be nice right back to you. It's a strange consequence of
it's a beautiful thing.
It is.
Yeah.
If you're nice, people will actually be nice back, and that it goes a long way.
Yeah, totally.
For sure.
So how can people find you, by the way? A website or anything?
Yeah, I'm trying to think what I have a YouTube channel, Kung Fu Dork Studios. That's probably the
best way.
The most updated kind of thing. And you can always check out tuskybusiness.com, and I go into there's pages on there of all the production of that, making that short with Kevin Smith and how it came about and the techniques I used and things like that. So yeah,
Sure.
It's out there.
Awesome, my friend. This has been awesome, and I'm going to see you tomorrow.
Appreciate it. Yeah, for sure.
And then we want to give a big shout out to all our sponsors that help with the podcast. And if you would want to contribute anything to the magazine, feel free to email me. I don't usually get back right away. I'm in production. It's like 9 to 5. Actually, it's 9. What is it? I work from 9 to 7. 2-hour commute, dude. Ooh. Yeah. And so it's kind of hard to get a hold of me now, but send me an email. I can probably get it on the weekend, and I'll send you a reply back. Also, if you want to talk to Deiter and you can't get a hold of him, I can forward a message through him.
For sure.
And thank you for listening, and thanks to our sponsors, and love you. Keep animating.
Thanks, everyone.